Okay, well, very good. So yeah, my name is George Matsko, and I taught chemistry and physics, as it says on the slide, for 39 years. And 5 years ago, retired from the classroom. And you see a picture of my better half there. She's home in Greenville, South Carolina. And I'm used to doing programs with her, so I'm a little clunky as I move around, so you'll have to forgive me. She's the organized one, okay? And so we started traveling 5 years ago, and we've been all over the country. Even during COVID, we traveled. So we were in, you want to get as close as you can if you want to see. Everything happens right here, so make sure you can see the table. And we went out to the West Coast, and we've been down to Arizona and Texas, down to Rio Grande Valley and Florida, and we've been up to New England and Minnesota. We've been everywhere, but never been to Iowa before. So this is my first time to be in Iowa, and I've enjoyed the friendship and the warm welcome that I've received. Not the cold air, but the warm welcome. Okay, so I found that people have it's cold air here, but warm hearts. So that's what I've seen. And it's glad to see you all here today. Okay, so our program today is called God's Unseen Creation Revealed in Science. By the way, I have Mrs. Renee Krefley here, and this is her home church. She's one of my coworkers down at Bob Jones University, and she's the homeschool engagement specialist for Bob Jones University. And we've done some programs with her and been to homeschools in the South Carolina area and so forth. And it was wonderful that she was able to be here and help me with another set of hands here. And afterwards, she'll be available to talk to anyone who'd like to talk about how you can go from being in homeschool to going to a school like Bob Jones University. So we're very homeschool friendly at Bob Jones. We have a lot of students from homeschools, and so we're able to integrate them pretty well into our programs there. So she's available as a resource to you. Okay, anyway, when we think about God's creation, we often think about the things that we can see. We think about, planets and petunias and possums and anything else begins with P. But anyway, but we don't think about the software. So we have these little computers in our pockets. And so they're both hardware and software, but if you don't have the software, nothing's going to happen. They're not useful for anything. Can't even pound nails into them or anything. And so I'm mainly thinking about the software that God created when he created everything on the first week of creation. So that's where I'm coming from. Now, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And on day one, God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. Good. So did you ever think about what that light was on day one? Anybody have an idea what that light was on day one? Anybody have a thought? Yes?
The sun.
Yeah, a lot of people say the sun, but what day was the sun created on? Anybody know? 4, that's right, the 4th day. And so people say, the Bible gets it wrong. How can you have light on day 1 and the sun's not created till day 4? And people say, well, we can't believe the Bible because if it gets that wrong, it must get everything wrong. But the light that God created on day 1 was not from the sun. It was what we call the entire electromagnetic spectrum. And that includes the light we can see. That's the red and the orange and the yellow and the green and blue. But it also includes a lot of light we can't see, like radio waves and microwaves and infrared and UV and X-ray and gamma rays. We were just talking this morning about, I'm using a green laser here, and I have a pack of 3 lasers. One's blue, one's red, and one's green. And I often ask people, why can we see the green laser better than the other colors? And the reason why, even though they're all the same power, it's because our eyes see best in that narrow part of the spectrum. And in fact, that's where the sun gives off most of its energy, is right in the green part of the spectrum. And so it almost is like the same person who made the sun made our eyes. How about that, huh? So anyway, I just throw that in for free. All right. So how do I know that God created electromagnetism the first day? Well, because I know about atoms, and I bet there's people here that know about atoms. Somebody want to raise their hand, tell me what the three components of an atom are. Anybody know? Three components of an atom? Yes. Okay, we got electrons. Anybody got the other two? Yes. Protons and neutrons. So electrons are negatively charged particles, and they're moving. So anytime you have a moving charge, you have electromagnetism. So I wanted to show you that there's electrons in all matter, but I can show you with these balls here. I have some let's see, get the right one here. So this is the thermite reaction for you older ones that have had chemistry. And so I'd love to do the one on the left-hand side, but if we did that one, Dr. Biddle of our science department, he did that, and it was an exciting day for all of us because we got to walk outside and the fire engines came. So we're not going to do that. It actually produces a lot of energy and can be pretty scary. So what I do is I wrap a piece of aluminum foil around one of these iron balls, and I've rusted them. Actually left them outside in my backyard and rusted them. And when I hit them together, we'll actually produce some electrons that you can see. So watch. Okay, see that? Just some folks over here. Okay. Yeah. My own little fireworks here. Okay. Okay. So you can actually see, that there's some electrons in here. One more. There, that's a good one. I have a lot of fun with that. I'm going to take these home on the plane tomorrow. I wonder what they look like on the X-ray machine. Anyway, so it's not just these rusty iron balls that have electrons in them, but all matter has electrons. So you see the Bible gets the order right. Now the Bible's not a science textbook, but everything the Bible says about science is true. You can depend on it. So you have electromagnetism first, and then you have the atoms that make up the world we live in, and then God waits all the way to day 4 to create the sun. Why does he wait so long? Well, I think it's because he knew the ancient people would worship the sun. He's saying, don't worship the sun, worship me. I'm a lot more important than the sun. All those ancient civilizations had a sun god, okay? Don't worship them, worship me. All right, well, let's talk about some of this electromagnetism that we can't see. We'll start over with gamma rays. Now, that's the most energetic type of radiation. It can be really dangerous, and it can destroy cells. But we can use it for something useful. We can use it to cure people of cancer. We can aim those gamma rays at cancerous tumors and shrink them and save people's lives. We were in a school, and the principal had a cancer in his nose, and the doctor told him he could either have part of his nose removed or he could have gamma rays shot at it, and he did that. And so every time we come back, his nose got redder and redder and redder. He looked like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and he was really self-conscious about that. But it saved his life. So this is where the creation mandate comes in. Anybody ever heard of the creation mandate? Anybody know those words? Okay. So creation mandate, Genesis chapter 1, is that we're made in God's image, and we're told to subdue the earth, have dominion over the earth. So how do we do that? How do we subdue the earth and have dominion over it? Well, I've tried asking mosquitoes not to bite me, and they still do. Okay? I don't have dominion over it. Those little tiny mosquitoes. So how do we have dominion? We have dominion through science and engineering. It's through science and engineering. We push nature toward a useful end, in this case, to cure people of cancer, and we glorify God. So I like talking to young people and Christian young people about science and engineering, because there's a direct way we can fulfill the creation mandate we have in Genesis chapter 1. So that's pretty exciting. Well, here's another type of radiation that could be harmful, and that is X-rays. Now, I chose this picture because it reminds me of my childhood. So when I was growing up, when I was just in elementary school, we had X-ray machines in the shoe stores. We used to have Buster Brown shoe stores. I don't know if those have those in Iowa. We have Buster Brown shoe. We'd run ahead of our parents, and we'd stick our feet in the box, and we'd look at the bones in our toes. And we thought that was pretty cool. So I lived during a time when they let children x-ray their own feet. Okay, we don't do that anymore. There's a good reason for that. There was no shielding. That poor salesperson, he was getting a pretty good, amount of x-rays just standing there. And the last one of those was taken out of a shoe store in Connecticut in 1976. So they lasted for a good long while. So we were up in New Jersey on one of our tours, and we went to the Edison's museum, his workshop there. Edison was interesting. Edison was a great inventor. He's a terrible atheist, but he was a great inventor. And one day he locked up for the day. He went home and died. And they left it locked up for 30 years. And by the time they came back to open it back up again, it was a Superfund site because there were so many dangerous chemicals and things there. So it was interesting. But now it's a National Historic Park, and we were able to go there. And one of those boxes was there. He invented that. He called it a fluoroscope. And so I told the National Park Service guy about how I used to x-ray my own feet. And the guy said, well, that's really dangerous. He looked at my feet like they're going to fall off. So hopefully I won't get foot cancer from my exposure from that. But they're useful. How many of you have had an x-ray? How many have had an x-ray? Well, look at all that. See, all these people have had x-rays. So they're useful, and we use them. And by using x-rays, we can help people and glorify God. And then we have ultraviolet rays. Now, ultraviolet rays could be harmful. We use sunscreen to protect ourselves from those. And that's right. What you're seeing there is they have a strong ultraviolet light, and they wheel it into a hospital room, and they turn it on during COVID, and it killed all the COVID viruses in the air, and they could use the hospital over. I mean, the hospital room over. Then they had a robot. They had it on robot wheels, and they put it on an airplane, and they'd run it down the aisle when people weren't there, and it would clean the airplane before the next passengers would get on. Okay, so that's something useful. I have a little ultraviolet light, just a little tiny one that I could travel with. And I have some beads, and these beads have a special chemical in them. Let me show you what that is. So, whoops, let's go back one, there we go. So this is a chemical called a spiroxine, if you've had chemistry, and it's sp3 hybridized, so it's tetrahedral. If I shine the UV light on it, breaks one of the bonds, and the whole molecule twists, and it picks up the conjugation on either side, and it's colored. And so you'll learn about that when you take chemistry someday. So here we have some beads, and these beads have the spiroxines in there. They look white right now, but if I shine the light on it, notice they turn colored, see? Like that. Now, some of the folks yesterday said they couldn't see this, so maybe Mrs. Crefley, maybe you could take that around and show it to them. Keep it colored there so they can see it. Okay, so what else can we do with that? Well, we can take those same spiroxines and we can put them in my old transition glasses. And so they took the same ones in there, and now what happens, let me show you the chemistry here. So this is the uncolored spiroxine molecule. Where that red ball is where it breaks the bond. And you can see before it breaks, it only absorbs in the ultraviolet. And after it breaks, it looks like this. It actually flattens out and becomes colored. Okay, so that's kind of a cool thing we could do with chemistry. Gonna have to ask you for that light back, Mrs. Crefley, so I can show them these. Thank you for doing that. Okay, and so see here, I have the same spiroxines in these glasses, and so if I shine it through, I used to wear these and turn into sunglasses when I go outside, so if I shine it through here, it'll actually turn it into sunglasses. See how it turns into sunglasses? Turns it dark like that. Problem with that is if you come inside, you can't see anything for a while, if you ever use those. And so what they've done is they've taken contact lens, they put that same chemical in there, and because the plastic is soft, it turns right away. So I just go like that, and notice it's dark automatically like that. It'll turn back clear again really, really fast like that. So if you ever want contact lenses, you want to be a black-eyed beauty, here's your opportunity. Okay. So that is ultraviolet light. And that brings us to the geese. So I have a bigger one of these, and I got it in California, where my daughter lives. And I was walking around with in my hand, I saw some sleeping geese like that. And I didn't think anything of it. They weren't paying any attention to me. They were fast asleep. And I took my flashlight, and I just went like that to them. And it was like I threw a bomb in the middle of them. They were squawking and flapping and trying to get out of there. I never saw such a great reaction. I forgot that birds can see in the ultraviolet. And so I got a big reaction from them. You know what I did next? I tried to find some more birds, some more geese, and do that too. I had a lot of fun that day. I was the terror of the geese in that area. So this is good for the birds, because birds can see in the ultraviolet, and spider webs glow on the ultraviolet. And so it keeps the birds from running into the spider webs. So you know how sometimes you'll hit a spider web with your face, and it's a terrible feeling to get off. But the poor birds, they don't have hands. So there's no way, they can't pull them off their beaks or anything. And so it's good the bird doesn't hit the spider web. And it helps the spider too, because spider doesn't have to remake his web. So that's a pretty cool thing. So speaking of the creation mandate, so here's a company up in Pittsburgh that makes glass, and they're concerned about the fact that so many birds are hitting the big plate glass windows in these big skyscrapers and dying, that they put markers, they put UV markers like spider webs inside the windows. We can't see them when we're in the building, but the birds can see them. So watch this video.
Millions of birds die each year by flying into windows. Sometimes they see straight through them or become confused by reflections in glass. Several years ago, a nature enthusiast came up with a way to reduce these fatal collisions. He read that orb weaver spiders decorate their webs with threads called stabilimenta, which reflect ultraviolet light, something we can't see, but birds can. It's thought this clever trick helps prevent birds striking the webs and destroying them. On learning this, he teamed up with a glass manufacturer to develop a window coated in UV reflecting markers. Though almost invisible to us, they hoped the markers would make the glass more visible to birds. They tested the prototype by releasing birds in a tunnel with glass panes at the end, one made of standard glass and the other made of the UV glass. Don't worry, a net was suspended to protect the birds from actually striking the panes. The birds then tried to fly out through one of the perceived openings. More than 1,000 test flights found birds chose the path towards the standard pane significantly more than the UV test glass. The spider-inspired windows have since been fitted in several universities, shops and houses across Europe and the US.
So there you have it. That's how you use the creation mandate, science and engineering. So it does something useful, in this case saves birds, and glorifies God as a result. That's what those scientists did. All right. Then we have visible light. And you say visible light, I can see visible light. How could that possibly be part of God's unseen creation? If we get the lights off, please, this would look a lot better. Somebody could grab those, thank you. So this is a light tube. Now, of course, normally the light goes straight, but if I put it in the light tube, I can push it toward the center, okay? Using the principle of refractive index, the ability of different materials to bend light and send it toward the middle of the light tube, okay? You can see it spiraling around in there. And we use that same principle to send information all over the world using fiber optic cables. Now, fiber optic cables used to be, I couldn't have bought them for any amount of money when I was your age, but we can make them so they're cheap. They're just cost cents now. You can see I can send the light through the fiber optic cable, and we use that to send information all over the world TV and phone calls and all that type of thing using the fiber optic cable. And so you may see them in your yard. You might see those little, little flags in your yard where they put the fiber optic cable around and bring it to your home. They put them under the ocean. So every once in a while you read about some ship drags its anchor and rips one of those things up. Some poor country loses all their internet for a while. So that's an occupational hazard. Now there's one material that has the highest refractive index, and it's hard and it's clear and it's expensive. Anybody know what that would be? Anybody know? Hard, clear, expensive? Yes. Diamond. Very good. Mrs. Crefley, we want to put that on your finger? Okay. And we'll see if we can, okay, put it up like this, see if we can see it. Can you see it up there? So we value diamonds because they have a high refractive index. So actually, I have a confession to make. This is not a real diamond. This is a cubic zirconium. Does anybody have a real diamond? Anybody here with a real diamond? Yep. Oh, you got a real diamond? Here, you can leave it on your finger. Just well, we'll see. Okay, let's see if this is a real diamond. Okay, can you see it's sparkling there? Yeah. So this is a cubic zirconium. I paid $15 for it. Did your husband pay more than $15 for that? Maybe. Okay. And so it has a refractive index of 3.8, and diamonds have a refractive index of 4.2. So you're paying a lot of money for 0.4 refractive index units. Okay, we can add the light again. Thank you. All right, then, what do we have? Well, we have the sea sapphire. So sea sapphire uses diffraction to bend light. It's got grooves, little plates on it, and because it bends light, because of the refractive, because of how the light diffracts off it, it bends it, and depending on the angle, you can see it or not see it. Sometimes it'll disappear, and it's hard for its predators to get to it, so watch.
The sea sapphire could be the most beautiful animal you've never seen. Some of the tiny little-known copepods appear to flash in and out of brilliantly colored existence. To figure out the trick to their hues and invisibility, researchers measured the light reflectance of live individuals and the distance between the layers of the crystal plates that cover their backs. They found that changes of reflectance depended on the thickness of the spacing. And when light hits the animal at a 45-degree angle, reflectance shifts out of the visible light range and into the ultraviolet, allowing it to practically disappear.
Isn't pretty clever? Okay. I know they said with those birds it was clever, but it's God. It's God's design for these animals. Okay. And here's another one. Oops. Yeah. So infrared. So perhaps you remember during COVID they used to aim those thermometers at your forehead, take your temperature. Remember those? Well, you all glow in the infrared, and I just happen to have a little infrared camera here. I want you to see what you all look like in the infrared. I actually think people look better in the infrared than they do in visible light. So what you can do is you can rub your hands together like this and get them hot and hold them up, and you can see your hands will turn white because that's the hottest color. Let's start over here, and we'll see if we can let everybody see themselves over here. Okay. Don't you look good in the infrared? See? Anything look good? Okay. Now we'll get this group over here. Okay. Well, we go get these folks over here so they can see. I often thought if we could see each other in the infrared all the time, there wouldn't be any racism. Just a thought. Okay. Now, there are animals that can see in the infrared. Anybody know what animals can see in the infrared? Anybody have any idea? Anybody have an idea? Yes? Fish, some fish can. Okay, you know, there's one fish that can see in the infrared and the ultraviolet. It's the only one we know of. And so it's a really special animal. I bet you can't guess what it is. It's a goldfish. Goldfish, for some reason, God gave goldfish the ability to see infrared and ultraviolet. So when you see the lowly goldfish, remember it's a really special animal that God created. But I was thinking about snakes. Now, that's not a snake, that's a squirrel. And so in California, these California ground squirrels, and the rattlesnakes, which are pit vipers that can see in the infrared, like to eat the squirrel babies. And so God's given that squirrel the knowledge of which snakes can see in the infrared. And so when a pit viper, when a rattlesnake comes, it'll pump warm blood into its tail and scare the snake away. Watch.
Kicking stones only provokes the snake. Rattlesnakes sense prey by the heat they give off, and the squirrel is able to take advantage of this. She heats up her tail with warm blood. Waving it at the snake is a threat. It makes her look much larger than she is. And the scent of rattler on her fluffed tail intimidates the snake. It decides to retreat.
So that's squirrel 1, snake 0. Okay? So she scared the snake away and didn't eat her baby. So that's really good. Well, what other animals can see in the infrared? Well, here's a special one. A black fire beetle. So fire beetles have infrared sensors on them. Now they lay their eggs in burnt wood. And so when there's a forest fire, instead of running away from it like we would, they all fly toward it so they can get there and bury their eggs in the burnt bark of the tree. So watch.
Forest fires repel most animals, but they attract black fire beetles. Why? Because newly burned trees are an ideal place for these insects to lay their eggs. Furthermore, fire drives away predators, leaving the beetle free to eat, mate, and lay eggs safely. But how do black fire beetles find forest fires in the first place? Consider, next to its middle legs, the fire beetle has sensors called pit organs that can detect infrared radiation from a forest fire. The radiation generates heat in the pit organs and then directs the beetle to head for the flames.
Okay, so I'm sure you understand that, you know, this little camera I have on my phone, this evolved. Okay, you know, nobody made that. Okay, it just evolved by itself. Same with the infrared detectors on the fire beetle. One more. Dragonfish. So dragonfish lives at the bottom of the ocean. So, you know, when light hits the water, it actually is absorbed by the water. You go down really deep, it actually is black down there. There's no light at all. Maybe you've seen deep sea divers, and they can't see anything down there without lights. And so the dragonfish brings his own light. But if it was a regular light, if it was a UV light, or a visible light, then other fish could see it and he couldn't catch his supper. So what he does is he has this little, you see under his eye, has this little infrared flashlight, I guess you could call it. And so it actually sends infrared radiation out, and then it bounces off the fish that he's trying to eat and bounces back to his eye, and he can see it. He can, even though his prey, the fish he's trying to eat, can't see it, he can. And so he gets a supper that way. So he has both a transmitter and a receiver. That's pretty good. I wonder how that evolved. Okay, don't think so. It's pretty sophisticated. Well, microwave ovens. So uh, this is Percy Spencer. Percy Spencer accidentally invented the microwave oven. So he worked for Raytheon during World War II, and they made radar equipment, helped win the war against Nazi Germany and Japan. And after the war was over, of course, the government stopped buying radar equipment, and so they thought the company was going to go under. And so they said, what can we make that people might buy? Well, he came into work one day, and he came up to his lab table, and it had a magnetron on it that produces radar, and he had a chocolate bar in his pocket, and the chocolate bar melted in his pocket. Now, if I had a melted chocolate bar in my pocket, I'd be upset. But he wasn't a normal human being. He was an engineer. That's a joke, all right? Okay, those of you married to engineers, you know. Anyway, and he said, oh, cool, I can heat my lunch with this. And other people started heating their lunches, and somebody said, you know, people might buy these things. And so what you see here is on the right, this is the first commercial microwave oven. And it weighed 600 pounds and cost $2,000. Now, $2,000 back in 1940s, you could almost buy a house for $2,000, okay? And so guess how many they sold? 0. Plus, people were afraid of that word radiation. Are you afraid of that word radiation? Well, you're being radiated right now by these lights up in the ceiling. Doesn't seem to bother anybody. It's all radiation. And so, but it was during the Cold War. People were afraid that, you know, that it was going to kill them or something. I meet people all the time that are afraid to use microwave ovens because they think it turns their food to poison or something. But all it does is make the water molecules spin. So it's tuned to the rotational spectra of the water molecules, makes the water molecules spin, and just like you're heating your hands, you're doing this, the spinning water molecule produces friction that can heat your food. Okay, so that's all it does. Don't be afraid of those. Plus, it's in a box. You know, you notice when you pull the door open, it stops. Okay, that's a safety feature. And that box is what we call a Faraday cage. It keeps all the radiation on the inside. All right, what else do we have? Radio waves. So you think about radio and TV, but we should think about what happens when radio waves hit a piece of metal. It makes the electrons move back and forth. So I have a little energy tube here, and this energy tube produces 1 milliamp. Now, 1 milliamp is less than I can feel. You know, maybe you could all help me here. You want to help me with this? So what we're going to do is all hold hands and see if we can get it to light up. If you can hold hands, everybody got to hold hands. Okay, here we go. And there you go. See? Can you feel anything? No, I hope not. You're not supposed to be able to. Okay, so that is 6.22 times the 10 to the 15th electrons flowing per second. That means 6 with 15 zeros after it per second. So you wonder why you've never seen an electron? Because they're really, really small. Okay, you can't see them, and but they're, you know, huge number of electrons. So that's part of God's unseen creation as well. I have a, let's see, I always put my clicker down and I forget where I put it. Where did I put it down? Here it is. Okay, I do that all the time. So here is an electric eel. And so God's given animals this ability to produce electricity. And it produces a lot more electricity than my little energy tube, okay? Now, when I was your age, that was back in the 1950s, we had something called Moody Science Films. And on reel to, you know, they're on big reels, you know, and they'd bring them to church and we'd watch them and so forth to talk about, you know, God's wonderful creation. So I found these, they're still on YouTube. And so I got a clip about an electric eel. You couldn't make a video like this today because they think you're, you know, hurting the eel or whatever. You know, the animal protection people will be upset with us. But I want to show you this from my childhood, okay?
Even some of the folks here at the laboratory have been just a little bit skeptical about Joe's electrical prowess. And for that reason, we've asked a few of them if they wouldn't help us in an experiment. Will you have the group come in now, please? All right, Dave. You'd stand right over here, please. The rest of you just line up there. You're right over here, Mr. Humphrey. That's fine. Now, Dave, if you'll take this, please, and hold it in your right hand. Lloyd, you hold this one. That's fine. Now, everybody join hands. That's right. Now, you're connected in series. Now, there are 5 of you. That means that each of you will receive just 1/5 of the total voltage of the eel. Now, relax. We'll give you the low voltage tap first. You ready? Did you feel that? That was bad, was it? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to have you meet a group of confirmed believers in electric eels. Thank you very much.
So those videos just stirred my imagination. They're one of the things that made me want to become a scientist. Well, before we get to Robert Boyle, I'd like to show you an Odin coil. We'll leave him up there. We'll leave Robert Boyle up there for now. And we'll talk about him in just a minute. But I have an Odin coil. This Odin coil takes the house voltage, which is 110 volts, and transforms it to 50,000 volts. Mrs. Krefley's going to hold it for me. And what I'm going to do is put some thimbles on my fingers, and I'm going to touch 50,000 volts. And you should be asking yourself, how does Dr. Matsko survive that? How it doesn't kill him? Okay, so go ahead and, oh, did you get it zapped? There we go. Okay, and I can light a light bulb with it, see, like this. Okay, thank you. So how come I survived that experience? Well, some people say, well, it's a low current, but there's plenty of current there. You can lay that deck down. And so the key is that electrons are negatively charged, and like charges repel each other. So when I was a boy, 12 years old, I lived in New Jersey. My father was an immigrant, went through Ellis Island and settled pretty close. And we used to go huckleberry picking in the Pine Barrens. And so I was 12 years old, I'm in the Pine Barrens, there's a thunderstorm, running for the car, I'm up to my ankles in water, and I felt the hair on my head start to go up. And that's not a good thing, all right? And then a lightning bolt hit the tree right in front of me, and I felt that surge of electricity around my body. So we're talking about 1 billion volts now, and 50,000 degrees and so forth, and yet I survived the experience. Why? Most people that are hit by lightning survive. 2/3 of people, 70% of people survive, only 30% pass away because of that. And the reason is because electrons are negatively charged and like charges repel each other. So what I have here is a little Van de Graaff generator, a handheld Van de Graaff generator, and I'm going to put these little tart plates on here. And when I turn it on, it'll pull all the electrons out of it, and they'll all have the same charge. They'll all have the same positive charge, and they'll repel each other, and they'll fly off. And Mrs. Krefley is going to try to catch them. She gets paid based on how many she can catch. That's it. Here we go. Oh, good job. Okay. Thank you for that. So you can see that positive charge and negative charge, if they're same charge, they repel each other, okay? And that's why I survived touching to the Odin coil. So if you're ever out in a thunderstorm, what you want to do is you want to put your feet together and then get as low to the ground as you can. You're trying to protect your heart. You want the electricity to go around you to protect you that way, okay? All right, what else do we have? We have Robert Boyle. So Robert Boyle, we call him the father of modern chemistry. When we started traveling 5 years ago, we go to homeschool groups and Christian schools, and I asked the young people, can you name any Christian pioneers of science? Okay. Anybody know of any Christian pioneers of science you've studied in your books? Yes. Most of them are Christians, so name one. Yeah, well, you chose the one that wasn't. Okay, so Isaac Newton, Isaac Newton had a high regard for the Bible. He wrote more about the Bible than he did about science, but he wasn't a Christian. He didn't believe in the divinity of Christ. But at least he had a high regard for the Bible. Okay, he was kind of a nasty person personally too. But yes, Faraday. That's right, Faraday. Michael Faraday is a wonderful Christian man, and we can learn a lot from his life. So, anybody have any others in mind that you've learned? Okay, well, let me tell you about Robert Boyle. Robert Boyle definitely was a Christian. So he was born 14th of 15 children to the Earl of Cork, who was the richest man in Great Britain at the time. And when he was 13 years old, his parents sent him to Switzerland to learn mathematics. Can you imagine, anybody 13 years old here? Any 13-year-olds? Raise your hand. Okay, we got a few, okay. So can you imagine being in a foreign country and by yourself without your family, and then there's a terrible thunderstorm and he's scared and he realized he wasn't ready to meet God. And so he did the sensible thing. He knelt down by his bed and asked Jesus Christ to be his Savior. And he really got saved. Because we know that because his silly teenage friends said to him, "Oh, Robert, wouldn't it be great if we could enjoy all the pleasures of sin during our lives and know at the end of our lives we could repent and enjoy all the pleasures of heaven forever?" "No," he said, "then you'd lose out on all the pleasure of serving God in this life." Now, I'm 71 years old. I can tell you there's a lot of pleasure in serving God with your life. You got your whole life in front of you. Use your life to serve God. If you just use your life like most people do to serve yourself, you'll be miserable. We have plenty of evidence about that. So use your life for God, as Robert Boyle did. Now, when he was older, he was rich, and he used his money to have Bibles translated. He had the Bible translated into Malay and Iroquois. And then he had used his money to have the Bibles printed. He tried to get a Bible in the hand of everyone living in the island of Ireland. Okay? And so he was a great man. And he left his money in his will for the Boyle lectures that still go on today to prove Christianity against all false religions. So if you're a Christian, you'll see Robert Boyle someday. Now, we call him the father of modern chemistry because he was the first of scientists to actually report experiments that did not work as well as ones that did. That kind of sounds like a Christian, doesn't it? But before there was chemists like Robert Boyle, there were alchemists. And they used to do this trick of turning, pretending to turn copper into gold. So they come to town to say, "Oh, king, live forever. I'm going to turn all your copper into gold." And if you didn't know what gold looked like, you might think it was actually gold. And so I'm going to do the same thing. It involves electrons as well. So I have these pre-1982 pennies. In my church, I said, "Does anybody have any pre-1982 pennies?" Before 82, they were made of copper. And so a guy in our church had his grandfather's penny collection. So I'm still working through that. And so I soaked them in a solution of sodium hydroxide and zinc. Copper and zinc are both active metals. And so it plates out and gives you like a silver penny, like you see up on the screen. And when I heat it, it turns it into something that looks like gold. You want to show them what it looks like? I'll make some more here. Anybody have a birthday this week? You have a birthday this week? Okay. Here we go. We'll give you a birthday present. There you go. Anybody else have a birthday this week? You got a birthday this week? Yeah, let's get you one here. Oops. Here you go. We come up and get your gold penny. There you go. There you go. Anybody have a birthday next week? Oh, another one. Okay, you get a birthday next week? Okay. Why don't you give me yours, Mrs. Greffley? You got one there? Okay. We'll come up and get it. Here we go. And everybody have a birthday present. There we go. Okay, I got two more. Anybody have a birthdays during this month? Any other birthdays this month? There's one over there. Okay. Next one. Okay. Go. Anybody? You got one? Okay, good. All right. I think we got all the birthday presents out here. This young man right here. Okay. All right. Now they thought about gold differently than we do. We think about it as money. But they were interested in something else. They knew if you buried gold in the ground and dug it up thousands of years later, it'd still be bright and shiny gold. So we found a cache of gold that the Jews buried during the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD, and it was still bright and shiny gold. And so they thought the gold had the essence of eternal life, immortality. They were looking to secretive immortality. So that's how chemistry got its start, people searching for eternal life. Of course, we know where eternal life comes from. It comes through Jesus Christ, God's Son, who died for us on the cross. Well, before we leave electrons here, I wanted to do one more experiment using my Odin coil. And so I have some ethanol here, probably made from Iowa corn, I suspect. And so I'm going to put a teaspoon in these bottles. She said my wife put some eyes on these bottles, so we can see whether the boy or the girl blows its top best. Okay? I'm going to put some of this ethanol in here. And then we're going to put some stoppers here. So if the stopper flies your way, make sure you get me all of it. Give me the stopper and the ribbon and the tack. Sometimes they come apart. I never know when that's going to happen. So we're going to put the stopper here. We're going to shake it up. We'll see whether I'm going to try to see if I can hit the ceiling with it. So let's see if the boys of the girl bottle blow their tops best. My wife blows her top pretty well. All right. So, oh, don't tell her I said that. Oh, okay. Who we got? We got the girl bottle first? Yeah, we got the girl bottle first. So we'll see how she does. Okay. You'll see that? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. And here we go, the boy bottle. Oh, it came apart. So anybody find the cork there and the tack? I don't want anybody to step on the tack. Okay. The cork. Well, if you find the tack, let me know it because I don't want anybody to step on it accidentally. All right. All right, well, let's go on. Now, we finished with the first day of creation, so now we're going to go on to the second day of creation. And so, second day of creation, God separated the waters which were below the firmament from the waters above the firmament. And you say, well, what's the firmament? Well, the firmament is just the sky and outer space. Okay? And so, I'm going to talk about air, okay? And air is part of God's unseen creation. We can't see air. We can see what it does, but it has some interesting properties as well. So, for example, we had the pressure of the atmosphere pushing down on us all the time. And I can prove that. I got a little bottle here, and I have a balloon inside the bottle, and I have a hole right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my lips on here, and I'm going to expand my lungs using the muscles in my chest, and I'm going to pull the air out of here. When I do that, the air pressure above us will push and blow the balloon up. Watch. See, just like that. Okay? And so I'm actually using the air pressure. So a lot of people say, I'm sucking the air, but more importantly, it's the air pressure that's pushing it, making the balloon go up. Now, the air pressure is really very, very strong. So there's a famous experiment that was done by Otto von Guericke. He lived in the 1600s in a town called Magdeburg, Germany, and this is his famous experiment with what they called the Magdeburg hemispheres. And what he did, they'd figured out how to make vacuum pumps back then. And so they put those hemispheres together, put grease on them, pumped the air out. Then he attached it to 2 horses, and they didn't come apart. And then 4 horses, and then 8 horses. And even 8 horses couldn't pull it apart. And the townspeople were just amazed at how strong that air pressure is. You say, well, I can't feel it. Well, that's because you have the same air pressure on the inside of you that you have on the outside of you. Now, you ever notice when you dive into a swimming pool, go down to the bottom, you feel all that pressure of the water on you? Because that's the pressure difference. There's a difference between the pressure outside and inside. So that's why we don't feel all that pressure. But I want to show you how strong it is, okay? So I don't have any Magdeburg hemispheres, and I couldn't get the horses to the door in front here. So I have these things. What are these things? Not that. Yeah, people call them suction cups. Now, suction's not really a scientific word, so I use the word pressure cups because it's the air pressure that pushes them together. It's going to squeeze the air out from in between them like this, and then try to pull it out. Okay, so do we have anybody real strong out there who can help me pull it apart? Anybody real strong? Big? I need a big guy.
Andy, I think he's right.
Okay, this guy back here, you look big enough. You want to come up, help me with it? What's your name? Daniel. Danny's going to help me with it. Okay. Mrs. Creflo, you can spot Daniel in case he. Okay, let's see. Now don't twist, just pull. See if we can pull it apart. Oh, you got it! Hey, good job. That was pretty hard. Good job, Daniel. Not too many people can do that. I had to hold on to the pulpit. So you can see how strong that air pressure really is. That was great. All right. What else do we have? We have the opu fish. So God has given the opu fish the ability to use suction cups as well. And the opu fish, for some unknown reason, lays its eggs on top of the waterfall in Hawaii. And so it comes in from the ocean and climbs the waterfall using its suction cups. And it takes a long time for them to get to the top. I'm talking about a really high waterfall too, so I took a little clip here so you can see it. So he's got a little suction cup on the bottom and he'll walk his way up the waterfall using air pressure to keep him attached to the waterfall, side of the waterfall. That's pretty good, isn't it? So amazing how God uses all these things he's created to give these animals special advantage. I don't know why. Just God likes variety, okay? He likes beauty, he likes variety. Okay, so I found when I was teaching that my students, even though they were physics and chemistry majors and all, they didn't understand the difference between pressure and force. And so I thought, I'm going to do a demonstration to show you the difference between pressure and force, so it that was when you go to college someday, you'll know it, and you won't have to be taught it. It'll be something that'll be ingrained in you. So what I have here is I have a hollow tube, and I have two balloons. And these two balloons are actually the same size. One looks bigger now because it's got a little stretched out. And I bought them at the same place in the same bag. I'm going to blow this real big because I have a lot of hot air. That's pretty good. All right, we'll put a little clip on here that I use to keep my cereal fresh. Okay, and then I'm going to put it on this tube like this, and then I am going to see if I can get it on here. It's good. All right, and then I'm going to blow up the blue balloon just a little bit. Watch. Okay, maybe a little bit like that, and I'll put the other clip on here, keep its air in. Okay, and I'll put it on this end. Now, science, we have hypotheses. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and take this red clip off. Okay, okay. So, do you have any hypothesis of what's going to happen when I take this clip off the blue balloon? What do you think? to be the same size? How many think they'll be the same size? Okay. Anybody have any other hypotheses? What do you think? You think they'll pop? Okay. How many think they'll pop? Okay. You didn't even vote for your own hypothesis. All right. Any other hypothesis? Yes. So it'll all go from the blue into the red one? Okay, how many think that? How many think the blue balloon gets smaller and the red balloon get larger? Okay. How many think that all the air from the red one will go into the blue one? They'll just change sizes. How many think that? Okay. How many don't think? That's everybody else. Raise your hand. Okay. You don't think. So let's watch and see what happens, all right? Okay. So what happened? The air from the blue balloon went into the red balloon. The red balloon got larger and the blue balloon got smaller. I heard somebody say, how? Well, I put the answer up on the screen for you. Okay, so you can see it. See that formula there? Pressure is equal force per unit area. So you see area is in the bottom number, the denominator. So as the denominator gets larger, the value gets smaller. So the red balloon has the higher area, so therefore it has the lower pressure. You don't look convinced. You don't look convinced. Okay, let me see if I can convince him. I'm going to take this off. All right. There it goes. So I have a tack here. Here we go. So here's a push pin. Now what's going to happen when I push the push pin? Is it going to hurt my thumb or my finger? My thumb. Why not my finger? Okay, so you said the needle's on my thumb, so what's the difference between the needle and the back of the tack? That's right. So the higher the area, the lower the pressure. That's right. See, and the smaller the area, so it's kind of like a woman in high heel shoes, you know, that's going to put holes in your linoleum or whatever, okay? Because there's so much more pressure. So think about that. So the higher the area, the lower the pressure. Let me demonstrate that another way. Do I have a volunteer? Do I have another volunteer? I saw your hand over here. You want to come up? Yeah. What's your name? I couldn't hear. Bailey? Craley? Creone. Creone. Thank you. Sorry, my hearing's not good. I'm 71 years old, all right? So Creone, here is a nail. And what I want you to do is hold the nail, and I want you to push slowly into this little balloon and feel how much force it takes to break it, all right? You got it? You got your mind? Now, I have 100 nails, all the same size, and I'm going to put the balloon here on the nails, and I'm going to, and what I want you to do is, oops, if I get it here, I'm going to put this down like this, and then I want you to push slowly like this on here and see how much force it takes to break the balloon with 100 nails. So go ahead and push it down, okay? Keep going. Would you say it's 100 times more force? Yeah. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. Give him a hand. So you can see what we have here. We have increasing area. So we went from 1 nail to 100 nails. So it takes 100 times more force to break it with 100 nails. Now maybe you've gone to a chiropractor and they have one of those bed of nails, you know, they put you on and so forth. That's the same way it works, okay? If you have enough nails, it'll spread the force out and, you know, it won't put holes in your back or anything, okay? So that's how that works. All right. So this is another thing dealing with pressure. It's called Bernoulli's principle. And so fast moving air has low pressure and slow moving air has high pressure. And so if I take a ball and put it in the hairdryer, the stream from a hairdryer, I can actually balance the ball. You'd think that it would actually make it fly to the ceiling, but it doesn't, because there's an area of low pressure around the ball and high pressure on the outside, so that keeps the ball from flying away, and they keep it centered. Keep it centered. Careful, see? If I can balance it. See if I can get it a little sideways here. I always get it sideways like that by balancing it. And let's see, there we go. So prairie dogs know about Bernoulli's principle as well. So prairie dogs live out in the desert, and it's hot there. And so when they build their burrows, they always build them with two doors. They have a front door and a back door. And they build the front door up so that it's higher than the front door. And when the winds on the prairie blow over it, the air goes through the burrow and gives them air conditioning. So they invented air conditioning. God gave them that ability. Isn't it amazing all the instincts that God put into these animals? And so prairie dogs take advantage of Bernoulli's principle. Now, there were two young men that grew up in a Christian home. Their father was a pastor, preached the gospel, and they were inventors. They were engineers, we'd call them today. And they were looking at birds, and they wanted to invent a heavier than air flying machine. They were in Dayton, Ohio. You know their names? Wright brothers, that's right, the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright. And so they looked at the birds, and they said they saw the bird wings were curved. So it's like this little piece of paper here. It's curved here. If I blow over the curved surface, you would think it would push it down, but it doesn't. It actually goes up. See? See, it actually goes up when I blow over. So the faster moving air has a lower pressure, and the high pressure pushes it up like this. So they realized that. And so they actually copied what the birds did. You know, a lot of engineers do that. They copy what God has already placed in the animal kingdom. And so they realized that they made their wings curved. Nobody thought about that before. You would have a lift. You'd have lower pressure on the top, higher pressure on the bottom, and you could get the plane to rise. Now I have I want to show you Bernoulli's principle. So I have some ping pong balls here. I'll put them on here. And if you can take this tube, and so if I blow the hair dryer over the top of the tube, now I have fast moving air, so the pressure is low up here, but the air pressure coming down from the atmosphere will push the balls up the tube. Watch. You're not getting it? No? No, I almost got it. There we go. Yep. Okay. So that's Bernoulli's principle as well. So look at how Wilbur and Orville Wright used this. This is a very old film, 100 years old, and shows the first flight. So watch. Hook it up to a catapult to get it up in the air. That's what they're doing right now. They're pulling the stone up to hook it to the plane. You can see the curve on the wings. How all amazed they are. I've never seen an airplane before. So they went all over the world. They would ship their plane and put it and assemble it, and they'd go all over the world to show people the first airplane. People were amazed, but it's because of the curve of the wing. Now the problem was, how do you get the plane to get into the air without the wind blowing on it? And that's why they had the catapult, get it moving so the air went over the wing, gave them some lift, okay? Now the problem was that even though they were raised in a Christian home, because they invented the airplane, they became rich and famous and proud. And as a result, they stopped going to church. And I find that happens to people. Sometimes they get so involved in things of this world, they forget about God. God gave them the ability. They even copied what God did with the birds, but they forgot about God. So that's kind of a sad story about Orville and Wilbur Wright. So hopefully that won't happen to you when you become successful in your life. Okay, so next is day 2. Remember, God separated the waters which were below the firmament from the waters above the firmament. So I call water the miracle chemical. You say, oh, water's, there's no real miracle there. Well, there is. It's really unique chemical, one that has properties that we take for granted often. So our body is mostly water. You're about 70% water, okay? So you're a big bag of water, okay, if you want to think about it that way. So without water, we couldn't live. Now, there was a young man in Idaho Falls, Idaho. He had to do a science fair project. And so he decided to do it about junk science. So he decided to do it about DHMO. Anybody know what DHMO is? It's dihydrogen monoxide. Watch. You have 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen. So that's 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen, and you combine together, you get H2O. So dihydrogen monoxide, just a sophisticated name for water. So he wanted to see if he could get people to sign a petition to ban this dangerous chemical, DHMO. So he said, it's a major component in acid rain. It caused severe burns in the gaseous state. Of course, steam will burn you, right? And found tumors of terminal cancer patients. So anybody, anything having to do with cancer must be bad, right? And contributes to erosion. It decreases the effectiveness of automobile brakes. That's true. And accidental inhalation can kill you. So drowning will kill you, right? And so he asked 50 people to sign his petition, and he got 42 people to sign his petition to ban this dangerous chemical, DHMO. One person, or 7 people said they didn't have an opinion, but only one person knew that DHMO was water. So that's kind of a funny story about water. But with some of the properties of water we just take for granted. For example, what color is water? Well, sometimes it looks colorless, and sometimes it looks blue in deep bodies of water. Anybody know why water looks blue in deep bodies of water? Anybody know the answer to that? You know? Because the sun reflects on it? That's a good answer, yes. Okay? It's not exactly the reflection. Yes? Okay, so a lot of people think the sky. That's the most common answer I get, but that's not true. Okay? So let me show you. If your book you're studying at home has that in there, tear the page out, throw it away. Okay? I know it's not in the Bob Jones book, so it's all right. All right. So why does water look blue? Because, like you said, the sun puts out all the colors of the spectrum, the orange and yellow and the green and so forth. But because of the size of the water molecule, it reflects the blue back out. Now, if you go deep enough, as I said before, down where the dragonfish is, it'll absorb the blue too, and then the water's black. Okay? And so you can say water is black in that case. But isn't it good that water is not a color? So this is my Clemson cup, okay? This tiger orange. So I went to Clemson University, got my PhD, and so everything in Clemson is tiger orange. It's everything around the town and so forth, and people love that color. But just think if water was tiger orange. Then if you drove through a rainstorm, you wouldn't be able to see. And all the snow would be orange, and the lakes would be orange, and the rivers would be orange, and all your food would be orange, because it all has water in it. So no matter how good of a Clemson fan you are, you get tired of orange after a while. Isn't it good that water is colorless? And water is odorless. Now, we were in a home in Milwaukee, and they had trouble with their water heater, and their water smelled like rotten eggs. And so, hydrogen sulfides. So I was taking a shower like this, all right? I came to bed. My wife said, what's that smell? I said, it's me. And she said, I took a shower to get clean, all right? But isn't it good that water doesn't smell like anything? And is it good that it doesn't taste like anything? What if water, because water is a neutral pH, it doesn't taste like anything. You have something to say about that? Elephants. Okay, they must be from the humidity. They must be able to detect the humidity in the air. They have sensors that we don't have, okay? And but doesn't have any smell, even though they talk about smell. It's not really smelling. And so it doesn't have any taste. So think about if water tasted like mustard, then all your food would taste like mustard. That wouldn't be very good, would it? You might like a little mustard on a hot dog. So even these simple things, the fact that it's odorless, colorless, tasteless, are good gifts from the Creator God. But most of the things about water are due to the electrons. Now, I know some of you aren't, you're too young for that. But at least you can see that it looks like upside down Mickey Mouse ears. Okay, it's got a positive side and a negative side. So positive and negative charges actually attract each other, and that makes the water sticky. Did you know that water is sticky? Mrs. Krefli, you want to help me with this? So what we're going to do is you can do this at home. Just get a string and put it in a cup like this. Okay, and then she's going to hold it taut for me, and then if I'm careful, I can pour the water down the string. Watch. See? Oops, gotta get a little bit more vertical. There we go. Okay, so we pour the water down the string because the water is sticky. We call that hydrogen bonding. Okay? So I use this. These beads. I got these beads from the $1.25 store. You have a $1.25 store here? Okay, and so what I did is my wife taped them together, these strings of beads, these cheap party beads. Now you think about each of the beads as a water molecule. Let me go over here since there's somebody over here too. Water molecule attached to another water molecule, and so they'll flow like water. They'll flow like a fountain up here. These are fun. You can make these yourself. Watch as I pull it out. Look up here. Don't look down there. Look up here. See? Just like that. So you can see them flow like water out of the cup. Thank you for your help with that. All right. And water is unusual because it exists in all three states, solid, liquid, and gas, under the temperature and pressure conditions of the earth. It's the only chemical that does that. Sometimes you might read a book that purports to show how different plants or animals evolved. Well, I want to read the book, The Evolution of the Water Molecule. Anybody read that one? Look for that on Amazon sometime, see if you can find it. Now, it's silly, isn't it? God designed the water molecule for this planet. Or maybe he designed this planet for the water molecule. It works both ways, okay? It's designed by God. Now, when we used to go to Australia with the mission team, and we'd do the demonstrations in the schools, I would talk about ice and snow and so forth, and the kids didn't know what I was talking about because they lived in the tropics. So I'd always make some artificial snow for them. Now, I know you get plenty of snow here, but I thought I'd make some artificial snow for you too. And this is a material called we'll get to that in a minute. I'll get back, there we go, sodium polyacrylate. I got my slides in the wrong order. So this is a plastic material, and it actually absorbs water because of another special property of water called osmotic pressure. And so I'm going to put some water in here. I know I say water funnily, but that's because I'm from New Jersey. All right, and so I'm going to put this water here, and we're going to make some nice fluffy snow. So watch. So the kids would always say, is that real snow? Because they'd never seen it. I'd say, it's real artificial snow. And they thought that was fine. okay? So you can see all the nice fluffy snow we have here. So it's actually cool. I'll put it outside after you get your cookies and all, and you can feel it. If I pass it around now, we'll have snow all over the church, so we don't want to do that. So what do we make out of this stuff, this artificial snow? Yes, diapers, that's right. They cross-link it differently to make it into a gel, because you don't want yellow snow all over the house, okay? Okay. So I understand people in Saudi Arabia ski on this stuff, okay, so it has a use. All right, what else do we have? Well, we go back to the fact that water, the ice floats. That is, a solid form has a lower density than the liquid form, and ice floats on the liquid water. And that's really important because places like this, where the lakes and rivers freeze, if water was like every other chemical we know about, the lakes and rivers would freeze from the bottom up, it would kill all the fish. You'd have fishicles. But God created so it forms an insulating layer over top of the water and keeps the fish alive. God cares about the fish. Why does ice float? Well, it has to do with its structure, the hydrogen bonding. So we often talk about how each snowflake is different, but more importantly, each snowflake is the same. They all have the hexagonal structure to them. So as it freezes, it opens up, decreases the volume, or increases the volume and with the same amount of mass, and causes it to be less dense. All right, what other properties do we have? Well, we have cohesion, surface tension, okay, because of the hydrogen bonding. So here's a surface tension demonstration. You can do this at home too. Get a ball jar like this, put a piece of screening on it, and then pour the water through the screen like this. And what's going to happen when I turn it upside down? Do you think it'll stay in there? You think so? No, it comes out. See, just like that. Maybe your water's different at home. Okay, so we'll put the water in here, and I'll put a card on it. Now it stays in. See? You don't want to shower? There you go. So why does it stay in there? Well, because it's cohesive, because of the hydrogen bonds. Also, it's adhesive. It attaches to the screen. Also, air pressure. Air pressure keeps it in there. So if I wanted to come out, well, I did this one time in a school, and there was a teenage boy and teenage girl sitting next to each other, and the teenage boy slapped my hand and went sideways, and all the water went on her head like that. That was a very bad thing to do. Okay, I hope he got in trouble for doing that. Okay. So here I am in the redwood forest in California, and you can see those trees towering up to the sky there. You look up there and say, how does the water get all the way up to the top of a tree against gravity? Well, that's because water is sticky. So as the water evaporates from the leaves and needles, we call that transpiration. It pulls other water molecules behind it, and it keeps the trees alive. So if water wasn't sticky, then trees would die. And our bodies are mostly made of water. And so to get their blood to all little veins and capillaries in our body, the water has to be sticky as well. So God designed water for life. Now you can see water has an unusual boiling point. This is a little piece of the periodic table here. Okay, so here's the oxygen family: oxygen, sulfur, selenium, tellurium. So hydrogen telluride, hydrogen selenide, hydrogen sulfide, and water. See where water's way up there. So because of water being way up there, that's why water exists in all three states on the earth. So very unusual property. And water, because it has the hydrogen bonds, has what we call a high entropy of vaporization. That is, when you have water is an ordered liquid. So when you break those bonds to go from a liquid to steam, it destroys a lot of order. Okay, we get a lot of entropy that way. Because of that, it can remove a lot of heat when it does that. Let me demonstrate. Let me get this here. I don't want to set the church on fire or anything. Okay, Everybody's been so kind to me here. I hate to have my last act burning the church down. Okay, and so I have a solution of isopropyl alcohol and salt water and a rag here. And what I'm going to do is set the rag on fire. I call this my non-burning rag. And it's kind of like, Moses' non-burning bush in the Bible, all right? So we're going to set it on fire so the alcohol burns, but notice the rag doesn't burn. The rag stays cool. The water keeps it cool because of the high entropy of vaporization. As the water evaporates, it absorbs the heat and keeps it from burning. Can you feel it? Wish you had some marshmallows, don't you? All right. Okay. But notice the rag doesn't burn. Okay? It stays just fine. The salt's in there so you can see it. That gives you the yellow color. And it's cool enough to handle like that. Now, I can do this with another piece of cloth that I have in my pocket. And this one is American money. American money is made of cloth. And so here's Ulysses S. Grant here. Okay. Did this in the Deep South one time and they all cheered. Okay, so they thought the Civil War was still going on. And so I put this in here, it absorbs the water, and then I can light the bill. Okay. And so it's just fine, okay? It absorbs the water absorbs the heat and keeps it from burning. So it's a little cleaner than it was, okay? That's why we call it money laundering. All right. So one more special property of water I want to tell you about, okay? And that is the high heat capacity of water. So water, because you think about where do liquids store their heat? They store it in the vibrational motion of the bonds. And so you got all these extra hydrogen bonds, so water can store more heat than any other common fluid. And because of that, it keeps the earth temperate. Is there more water or land on the earth? Water, a lot more water. If the earth was smooth like a billiard ball, there was no valleys or hills, the water would stand above the earth by 1.5 miles. That's how much water there is. Huge amount of water keeps the earth from being too hot or too cold. And that's why the climate, say, in Seattle is the same as Oklahoma City. Okay, so Oklahoma City's in the middle, and Seattle's near the ocean, like that. So I wanted to do a demonstration of the high heat capacity of water. I need a volunteer. Okay, how about you? Why don't you come here? What's your name? Levi. Levi. Okay, so Levi, I'm going to light this candle. And then I have a air balloon here. Okay? And so hold the air balloon like this and lower it down over the flame. Okay. You've destroyed my balloon.
How dare I?
Okay, now Levi, what I'd like to do, I have a water balloon.
Oh, no.
I'd like you to get on your knees next to it. And look up at the water balloon underneath. Get closer, come on. You act like you'd never been wet before. Okay, so I'm going to hold the water balloon over here. So the water absorbs the heat because there's a high heat capacity. It absorbs the heat faster than the candle can produce it. So what does it look like, Levi? Black, yeah. So this is what Levi's looking at. See how it's singed there? Okay. So Levi, I could actually hold it over the candle till the water in the balloon boiled, because water has a high heat capacity. Thank you so much. Give him a hand. He's brave. All right. Okay, one more heat capacity experiment, and that is I'm going to set Mrs. Kreftley's hand on fire. Okay, and if you're a senior or a junior in high school, we'll set your hand on fire too. Okay, because you're going to be going off to college pretty soon, and you won't be of any use to your parents, so if anything happens to you, it doesn't matter. Okay. Okay, there we go. Now what we're going to do is she's going to put her hand in the water to protect it, because it has a high heat capacity. And then she's going to scoop some bubbles. And she's going to hold her hand flat, okay? And she's perfectly fine. The water protects her. So any juniors or seniors in here that like to try it? Okay, come on up. Mrs. Crefley's going to hold your arm so that you don't wave it. The tendency is to say, ah, you know, like that. Don't do that. Okay, flat. Okay.
All the way down to the bottom of it. And you just scoop just this. Flatten out your hand.
Okay. What do you feel like? It's hot, yeah. It absorbs the heat. Okay, how about Pastor? You want to try it, Pastor? So. Okay. We'll see if it works with the Apple Watches. Flatten your hand. Flatten your hand. There you go. Well, it's fire. No, put it in that one. There you go. Good. Give the pastor a hand. Okay. All right. Let's get rid of those. Okay. So let's finish this up. So we've seen a lot of engineering properties that God has engineered the water molecule for life, okay? And the Bible talks about water, but also, before I talk about that, notice that not only you have the engineering properties, but God made water beautiful. Just think about all the people who build houses on lakes and rivers in the ocean because they like looking at it, right? And so that's so typical of God's creative style, is that God engineers things for life, but he also makes it beautiful because he enjoys beauty as well. So if you see something beautiful today, you should say, my God did that. Because only God can produce beauty. Evolution can't produce beauty, all right? And then in the Bible, it talks about water. It uses water as a symbol of spiritual birth and spiritual life. Think about the ways in which water and salvation are similar. Both are priceless yet free. Both are available to all. And water is essential for physical life and salvation for eternal life. And the last verse in the Bible talks about water is Revelation 22:17. The Spirit and the bride say, come. Let him that heareth come, say come, and let him that's athirst come, and whosoever will, let him take of the water of life freely. So that water of life was paid for by Jesus on the cross, and it's available to everybody in this room, everybody in the whole world. And what's really amazing is how few people will accept the free gift of the water of life that will allow them to live forever with God. And why is that? I think it's because they don't know how thirsty they are. So I mentioned I took mission teams to Australia, and we had a young man go with us. His name was Kelvin. He lived in Chicago, and he had brain cancer. And he had to have surgery, and they actually cut the part of his brain out that told him when he was thirsty. So we had to keep him drinking water because he would literally die of thirst and never be aware of it. So if you're a Christian, you're surrounded by people just like that. They don't know how thirsty they should be for the water of life because they lost that part of their brain. All right? So it's our job, Christians are called the salt of the earth. Salt makes people thirsty. Our job is to make people thirsty for the water of life so they can enjoy living with God forever. So you've been a wonderful audience today. I've really